Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Profiles in Risk. I am your host, Nick Lamparelli, on a blustery Saturday here in New England. So cold that I couldn't even go hiking this morning. My kid just went outside and came right back in. I am very pleased to have a good friend of mine, Pankaj Parashar. He is the founder of Purple Ant. Purple Ant, awesome name. We're going to get into that. Helps personal lines carriers increase renewals and improve loss prevention by leveraging IoT and AI technologies. They provide an end-to-end solution, including devices, mobile apps, cloud platform to support insured interactions. Pankaj, is it cold in Chicago?
Oh, are you kidding me? It's warm and sunny. You should just come out here. You might want to just venture outside and, half pants.
Yeah, in the winter.
I was just going to say, it's funny that last week, Nick, it was minus 50 with a wind chill, and it was colder than Antarctica, Siberia, all the places, including the planet Mars, right? Yeah. In fact, I felt like sending a message to Elon Musk to say, listen, your SpaceX is asking for $200,000 to go to Mars. Forget that, right? Just come to Chicago. It's way cheaper.
Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, we make fun of the weather here all the time. But it is home.
Yeah. I was actually thinking while during the drive to go hiking, we actually had in New England, we haven't had that bad of a winter, like not a lot of snow. It's been cold. It's instead of snow, we've gotten rain. I mean, it's not like it's wonderful, but it hasn't been like, 100 inches of snow type of thing that we traditionally get. So could be worse. I'm knocking on wood right now. We still have a long ways to go for winter, but I can't think of a better way to spend Saturday while my kid's sleeping to have this conversation with you and about Purple Ant. So let me kick it right off. Purple Ant, in your own words.
Our vision, Nick, is simply to create stickiness for the carriers in the property insurance space. We think that for too long, the lack of stickiness is a problem, and it seems to me that price is the only factor that seems to matter. In fact, I just feel that the insured, the homeowners, the moment they get a price rebate somewhere, they just switch carriers like that. And I just feel that carriers, for the first time in a long time, have this opportunity through IoT to change that, right? To create that stickiness. So that was the moment that I had, which actually was, from a conversation with my carrier that made me think, why are these guys pushing this auto telematic device, and why are they not giving me a home telematic device? I would love it for the safety and protection. So we kind of went from there. But like I said, our vision is absolutely to create that stickiness for the insurance industry.
Yes. So beyond stickiness, there are a lot of other advantages, right? That's the whole point, right? There's a lot of value that can be generated from IoT, AI, the combination of these devices. Can you talk a little bit about, for the insurer, let's gear the audience for those that are listening that might be working for insurer, the benefits of having these types of devices beyond just the stickiness, and we'll go into that a little bit more as well.
Right. I mean, if I were to sort of look at the levers that what we're offering is doing for the carriers, it's at two fronts. One is the effectiveness lever that I call it, right? Effectiveness because IoT and AI allow them to essentially improve their marketing, pricing, improve their customer engagement angle with the end customer. So there's that. How do I make the carrier more effective, right? So IoT and AI is a new way to impact that lever. The second is the efficiency lever. Like the carriers are always looking to improve their loss ratios. And if you look at all these new technologies, whether that's RPA or AI, and all of those are meant to essentially improve the efficiency. So what we're doing impacts that too. But there is a third element of a benefit angle, Nick, that we really believe in, and which is the building a recommendation system for these insurance. What do I mean by that? So usually, what we do, what a lot of the projects do, is give a lot of data. Now, the data by itself makes no sense, right? Unless you apply some analytics into it, then it becomes information. We apply AI on top of that to figure out what the actionable insight is, right? And that's what we're hoping to deliver to the carriers, that we will build a system for you that will tell you what to do, right? Actionable insight. Let me give you an example, right? Instead of a theory here. Let's say we've put in these water leak sensors inside a home, and we're now seeing that there are a lot of leaks coming for, let's say, the kitchen water pipe, right? And now that's data. There's like 7 or 8 leaks that have happened over the past few hours, and then you start to apply some analytics into it and say, oh, you know what? There is a good chance, because the leaks have happened so often, so frequently, maybe there is a problem there, so you should actually do something about it. So that's when the actionable insight gets into, hey, let's go back, communicate to this homeowner and say, listen, you have a problem in this water pipe, do something about it. With the AI models now, you can look at that property and go, well, this was built 25 years ago by this builder, and we've got 3 other customers in this subdivision. Well, now you can proactively go and factor that in and either communicate to them and say, listen, you might want to check out this water pipe because there is a chance that it might go bad, or you could factor it within your within your underwriting and pricing, so that if you get 3 homeowners in that subdivision, you can factor that in. So what I'm saying is that it's literally the next element of I call it the evolution of what technology is doing. Putting a lot of science. So instead of people in the companies spending time figuring out where do I get answers to these questions, you now have a system that tells you what the answer is. I don't know if that helps you understand, but we feel that that's really a big benefit to the carriers.
Yeah, very much. So, telematics has been around for a while now. That's it's not commonplace, but I think the model has been the model has been cast. There are some carriers that almost entirely use telematics. What has been the holdup on the other personal lines, specifically homeowners, but it can be commercial as well? What's the holdup? What's preventing this from taking hold? The devices are there. The AI is being built, so what's holding this up?
Yeah, actually, when we started the company a few months back, that was the first step we did. We went to a bunch of carriers and asked them, why are they not rolling this out, right? Because you've done pilots, some are already continuing to do pilots, but it hasn't become mainstream. And the feedback that we got was that the industry is kind of stuck because of 2 concerns. The first one is user adoption. A lot of the times, carriers will provide these devices to the homeowner for free, but they find that homeowners are not really activating them, which makes sense, Nick. When was the last time somebody sent you and I a freebie and we, absolutely wanted to play with it right away, right? If you don't want something, and even if you get it, you're not going to try to use it. So we said, all right, we get that, right? You've got to provide an incentive for the homeowner to actually activate this, and you've got to also make it super easy, right? You've got demographics of all kinds. There are people who are tech savvy, there are people who are not tech savvy, right? So depending upon the demographic, we kind of thought about how can we make this easier. The second problem I think that they're running into is the ROI problem, which is a bigger problem. These things cost money, right? A lot of the times when we got into it and we started doing the calculations and putting the spreadsheets together, we found that the carriers were actually spending more money on the mousetrap than the premium that they were collecting, to save it, which, is, I'm sure somebody with a P&L checkbook in the carrier says, man, we've tried this long, but until you get this that's right, I'm not gonna execute it, right?
Yeah.
So we said, all right, our business model needs to start from here. We need to be able to solve for these two concerns, because you know what came out positive in that interaction, in those pilots, was the customer engagement. For the first time in so long, outside of the buying and renewing and a claims event, there was a customer engagement opportunity. And guess what? It's a positive engagement opportunity, right? You're telling a customer, hey, Mr. Customer, you're either going to get a leak or it is happening right now. Please take care of it. None of us want a claim. If that homeowner is not inside the property, they're vacationing, they're somewhere else, well, guess what? There is a peace of mind element to it as well. So I think that was a positive, and we felt that customer engagement is what is really one element of the stickiness that we're going after. But we got to solve for this ROI and user adoption problem. So we looked at those as the means to the end being that improved, customer engagement model.
Yeah. But you were able to show the stickiness. So
absolutely.
That exists. Now you just have to solve for the financing, the aspect of the device itself.
Absolutely. I mean, the stickiness element is the customer engagement, we think also has it can be improved a little bit more, right? The positive interactions. And again, the user adoption is actually a key to it, right? How easy are you going to make these people kind of, use these devices, right? That's one aspect to it. But ROI, we feel amongst all these three elements was the one that we kind of focused on. We leveraged our managed services model. So the world that I come from, Nick, we've kind of done the managed services model for the insurance industry in different other technology solution areas, right? So we said, all right, there's a proven model. Why are we not leveraging that to solve this problem? All right, let's see how the numbers look like. And we finally made it work. So our starting point with any carrier conversation is, let's figure out what is the financial construct that makes sense for what you're trying to do.
Yeah. For a carrier that's, debating this, they're contemplating some device, IoT, AI strategy. How would you advise them as they contemplate this? Some of the things that they should be thinking about and deliberating about as they decide whether or not to do it and how to roll it out.
Absolutely. So from a Purple Ant perspective, we envisioned the engagement model with these carriers to be threefold, right? Step one is, we call it the design thinking process, which is very critical. Trying to help working with the carrier think through what is it that you're trying to achieve. Is it one of those effectiveness level? Is it one of those efficiency level? Is it a combination, right? What are the ratios that are relevant in your business? What are the demographics and the geographies, especially that you would want to target, which would make sense? So this is our consulting background coming in and saying, listen, we got to do that. We got to figure out the why first really nicely. So once we know what is it that we're trying to do, phase two, we then look at deploying the hardware, the devices, the software, the cloud, figure out the nuances to the customer engagement experience that we want to provide, and test it out in I'm going to call it a controlled environment, right? Or a pilot in some stage, which says that, okay, here's the kind of experience that we would want the homeowners and the insureds to have based on these ROI numbers that we want to achieve, right? And finally, rolling it out. The one thing that I think the hold up, I think the technology agnosticity is one of the cornerstone of what we bring in, Nick. And technology agnosticity is really important because I think the pace of the technology is changing so fast. There's newer technologies coming in, newer ecosystems coming in with Samsung's ecosystem, Amazon's ecosystem, and Google's ecosystem. And I think putting a stake and picking one of them at this stage, does not make sense for us, right? We think that we need to be able to be technology agnostic so that you can pick the one that suits the needs, because it's not a one size fits all. In fact, I feel that in the insurance industry, that never works. The one size fits all never works, even if it is, it could be anything. And I've seen that two carriers, same business lines, trying to use the same technology, but they will just do it differently, right? That is the secret sauce. Everybody does the same thing differently. So we said that we've got to factor that in our approach and adapt that into our business model. And technology agnosticity, the managed services model allows us to do that.
Yeah. In carriers, insurance, the insurance industry is very well known for being risk averse. So there are going to be carriers that say, well, it's too risky. Let's see how it plays out. Let's see how others do it. They'll use the term, we'll just be a fast follower. Can you talk about the advantages of doing this now, not delaying, and what would be the disadvantages of delaying?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're at an interesting point in the evolution of technology and disruption, as we call it. See, most of the property carriers also have a auto line of business, right? And I'll put it this way. Auto book of business is under threat, right? Everybody knows that. It's coming from tech providers, could be Amazon, Google, it could be the big three car companies, it could be the newer insurtechs who are going, who are filing the papers and coming right at the carriers. Absolutely, Tesla. Hey, Tesla, yeah. Point of selling the vehicle, as the insurance is bundled in, you're done, right?
Yeah.
So people are looking at a shrinking book of business on the auto side. But guess what's going to happen? They're going to have to start focusing on the property book of business, because like it or not, the regulations are there. The lenders still want you to carry the insurance, so that's not going anywhere. And carriers are going to be forced to look at, how do I build, how do I increase my book of business? How do I make it more profitable? Suppose those effectiveness and efficiency levers kind of come to play, right? And IoT and AI are the perfect example of something that can absolutely provide you a positive outcome on both of these, right? So I think the question I have for the carrier is, how long are you going to wait before you actually actively start seeing your book of business on the auto side to go down? The time is now. And for those of the people who actually tried the pilots over the last 2 years and have not yet kind of taken it mainstream, the timing to actually figure out and take the next step and solve the problems where you're stuck now is to do that right now, and not 2 years down the line, not 1 year down the line, because somebody else is likely to look at this and go, yeah, you know what, this makes sense. I'm going to try it out. The other thing I was going to say is the way we've factored our approach for the carriers, there is no upfront cost. So we've kind of looked at it and said, look, we're going to make it super easy, super less risky for you to try this out, right? And so that's kind of behind the Purple Ant's business model as well.
Yeah, but that's actually my next question. Is I could envision as part of the risk that, hey, it sounds risky. I'm going to have to upend my entire distribution, technology backbone. You're saying that's not necessarily the case.
Absolutely not. And that's where, well, look at it this way. The upending has come from a couple of different areas, right? It could be from a cultural standpoint. It could be from an infrastructure standpoint. I think what we've done from an infrastructure standpoint is made it easy. We've kind of self-contained all aspects of what is needed for this thing to work, right? So we've got the devices, we've got the software, we've got the backend cloud, we've got the APIs for the carrier to get the data, the reports. So we're bringing all of those elements in. From a cultural standpoint, I do think there is I wouldn't say a massive change, but maybe a realignment, especially when it comes to the customer engagement model. Remember, all the carriers today are built on those three touch points, right? It's the buying the policy, renewing the policy, and a claim event. And claim, and all three, I would argue, in somewhat way are not really positive experiences, right? Just the way how they're designed to be. So, because the moment you have the buying the policy or renewing the policy, especially, people will look at comparing with and shopping outside if they don't like to see if they don't like the number that they see, the premium that they see, which is being quoted. So I think that with the telematics, the positive experience customer engagement will need a little bit of a shift in how you think about engaging with the customers. And I think we've got some ideas around how to do that in terms of what those incentive models are, what could be some loyalty programs that you could bring in. Because anytime, one of the things I wanted to say is that incentive doesn't always mean a rate change, right? It's not a discount, because then you have to wait and file for the rate changes. There are other ways to actually get them exciting, and that's to do with the demographic of the policy holder as well. So that's what I would say is, so the good answer with this, long and short answer, the short answer is that you actually, there is not much drastic change. It is fairly seamless.
Yeah. There's so many types of devices now. I remember, I think it was Bob Frady from Hazard Hub was posting something recently that the largest non-catastrophe, non-fire set of claims is water damage inside the home. So like broken pipes, washing machine hoses breaking, that type of thing. So I know there are devices that will check for humidity, check for water, can even shut off the water valve, but those are fairly expensive compared to smart devices that do fire, smoke, and then there are devices that will, alarms and doorbell cameras, for instance. How do you? Does it make sense to have a scatter shot where the carrier offers all of that, or do they pick and choose? There's just so many different types of devices and so many different manufacturers. How do you balance that versus trying to get the the efficiency, the appropriate loss ratios, and actually getting that benefit from it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Nick. I think my short answer is that it's never a good idea to tie everything to one ecosystem, right? For example, Google with the Nest, or if it is just one element, which is fire. The way we look at it from a Purple Land perspective, and I'm going to go a little philosophical or professorial.
Yes, please do.
Remember Maslow's hierarchy, right?
Yes.
So
yeah.
So we look at it as in our world of property insurance. At the core of it is the safety element, right? The safety coming in from security, fire, and water, right? Those are the three elements from inside the home, right? And we are starting with water and fire simply because the security side has been taken over by the three-letter word called ADT. But it's super easy for us to just expand horizontally and add security, right? On top of this safety is the convenience aspect. There's the convenience aspect of like the Nest temperature, which is, hey, I want to, in the night, my temperature should be XYZ, right? I'm outside the home, it should be this. So we think that we can easily, because of the managed services model, because of the way we are being technology agnostic at the core of our business model, we can go vertically up and offer these matters of convenience too for the carrier, should there be a need, and should there be an evolution of technology in that field, right? So if Amazon tomorrow just decides to be in the safety and convenience play, great, I'm going to leverage them, right? So it's literally watching Samsung or Alex, Google or Amazon playing these games out on the consumer electronics end. And I'm saying, listen, I don't want to play in that, right? I want to offer an option to the carriers as well as to the homeowners ultimately. And so let's figure out a way in which we can do the safety and convenience based on what's needed, right, and how it evolves. So.
Yeah, I want to give you an opportunity to dig yourself into a carrier, because I used to work at a carrier, and knee-jerk reaction is always, let's figure out how to do this ourselves. Okay, versus outsourcing it. I'm a fan of outsourcing, so I'll just throw that out there. So I want to give you the opportunity to explain to folks that are decision makers at the carriers why they should consider outsourcing this. Talk about the trade-offs trying to do it themselves internally versus outsourcing the solution to someone like
You
Purple
know,
Ant?
Nick, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Nick, I've also been a solution provider to the insurance, and I've seen this play out in different other capabilities too. And I look at it this way: any new capability, right? Whether it's innovative new technology, if it's an innovative new process, has a cost and risk to it, right? The cost and risk of a new technology is high. An insurance company at the core of it is someone that wants to manage its risks. So then why would you not want to have someone like a Purple Ant come in, right? Prove this out to you, and then you can figure out at what point you want to scale it out to the enterprise, and maybe at that time you want to take it all over yourself or do it in a co-source manner. In fact, if you look at the adoption of new technologies in insurance, that's how it began, right? So companies always look to someone to bring that technology or the process in, and then they've kind of diverged, right? Some of them have said, you know what, that's never going to be core for us, so we'll always have an outsourced partner. There's some that have said, you know what, there's some aspects of this that I would want to hold, right? The knowledge has to remain with me, but sort of the execution of it has to be with somebody else. So we're flexible with both. We do think that the thought leadership and the investment that we've made, not just in sort of how the consumer and homeowners will look at it, but also just in the pure technology itself, right? What's available out there? What is the right answer for the property structure that you're covering at what cost point? We've done all that analysis, right? Why not take advantage of someone like Purple Ant who brings that expertise to you and cuts short the time that's going to take you to get the answers to the questions that are more relevant to you.
Yep, that makes complete sense. I think insurers should focus on what they do best and the
There you
things
go.
that why reinvent the wheel?
Exactly.
It just doesn't make any sense. I love this area so much. It just really fits with my vision of the future of insurance, where I just feel like, at some point, insurance will cease being that piece of paper. It'll become something more. And you talked about the stickiness factor. I can't even envision a time I'm thinking like a quarter of a century from now, where this type of thing is not like completely embedded in insurance. When people think about insurance, it's devices and these things that will make the risk management of our lives and our businesses much more effective. I'm assuming you're going to agree with me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think insurance is going through a fundamental transformation in many different ways, right? I mean, people have focused on the distribution side of it, right? And you and I can talk for hours, I guess, on the different, different ways in which that has evolved, right? Claims has also evolved in so many different ways, right? With the technology coming in. I feel personally that the underwriting space is prime now because there are fewer probably people focused on that, but I think that also is having a ton of, and you yourself are doing something very innovative in that, the flood insurance underwriting space. So I think that the just the way the scope of insurance being just, hey, I'm going to assess the risk and I'm going to execute based on, what happens with the claim, is going to go away, and it's going to be much more holistic in the future. So I totally agree with you. I mean, I think we're in for an exciting time. Good news is that regulation stays, so some people have to buy that product. Look at it this way: we have a luxury that not a lot of other verticals have, right? People do need our product. Right now, a lot of them have to take it because they have to take it and don't have to like it, but we can change that, right? That's what we're all about. We want to make it a very positive experience for them. We want to make it positive, for the carriers too. So, right?
Yeah, this is one of the few areas where, in theoretically, the insured and the insurer both have the same alignment of interest. They both theoretically don't want the claim. The history of insurance, the problem has been, because the insured buys the coverage, their behavior changes. Sometimes they have more information, so they know they're going to get a payoff, or they just, the morale hazard, they start to behave differently. This is the one thing that can really firmly tie that alignment of interest. It goes beyond the theoretical of, hey, I don't want to claim because it's from the insured's perspective, because it's a pain in the ass. From the insurer, they have to actually pay out, right? That has been solved with like deductibles and other things in the past. But this is the one piece of technology that truly connects those two. And I think it's gonna circle all the way back to where you started. It's the stickiness, because I think initially it's, hey, now we have this technological device that, hey, if a fire goes off, we can alert the fire department faster. We can get you out of the house quicker. Even if you're not home, it'll warn you. Oh, your water's leaking, it'll shut off the valve. So it'll do those kinds of things. But I think we're just scratching the surface. It reminds me of, I saw a presentation from Metromile's CEO, and he was talking about how their app now tells you, hey, you need an oil change. Hey, something's going, because it can plug into the diagnostics of the car. Hey, there's something wrong with the car. You need to do X. You need to bring it into a mechanic. So I feel like we're just scratching the surface of the alignment of interest and the stickiness factor.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's because for the first time there is a win-win on an aligned outcome, right? Which is preventing the claim, right? So for both, I mean, the example in our case that we say in the property is maybe one day this hub that we, putting in could be connected to your water heater and other appliances. And to the carrier, if they want to be in that business, it could, it could help reach out to those manufacturers and say, buddy, as well as to the homeowner and say, listen, your water heater is 15 years old, needs to be replaced. And by the way, here's a couple of or three options that you might want to consider. I mean, you can just take the ease of connectivity and use that data itself and monetize in so many different ways that it's I think a whole lot of possibilities. To be honest with you, I think we're just scratching the surface right now, Nick. I think that's the reason why they're projecting IoT to go from 7 billion devices to 72 billion devices in 4 years' time. Okay, so it is an explosion coming. And I think the key is to figure out the business use case of how to use this technology to the benefit, right? And I think that's where Purple Ant came in. We started solving for a problem and backed into how this technology can help us, solve that problem. So we feel really pumped that from a timing standpoint, this is a great opportunity for us.
And of course, I can't let you leave without talking about the name Purple Ant. I think a lot of folks, they're going to hear it and they're going to say, oh, that's, some MBA branding consultant came up with, hey, throw a color with an insect that's going to stick. But there's actually a method to your madness. Do you want to talk about the origin of the name Purple Ant?
I would absolutely. I have to tell everyone about it. And it's not, believe it or not, it's not one story, it's not two stories. There are actually three stories behind how we named the company Purple Ant. So I'll go one by one and how they happened. So the first one was, I heard the story, and it's on a video by one of the persons I consider as mentor to me. He was the CEO of my first organization, very charismatic guy, and he was talking about he's big time into the concept of startups and supporting the mentality that you got to have a go do yourself, create something from scratch and create value for everyone, in the process. And the story goes like this: there's two ants talking to each other, Nick. The first ant is telling the second ant, is asking them, what is your vision in life? And the second ant says that, hey, my vision is to be the richest ant out there. The second guy says, hey, that's my vision. What is your vision? So the first guy says, hey, my vision is to be the fastest ant. Man, these two guys are then high-fiving each other. Said, man, you want to be the fastest ant. I want to be the richest ant. That's great. In walks the third ant. The third ant, comes in, and these two guys says, hey, buddy, what is your vision? I want to be the richest. This guy with me wants to be the fastest. The third guy says, buddy, my vision is I don't want to be an ant anymore. I want to be a butterfly. I want to fly. I don't know if I'll succeed, but, I heard that story, and that was the moment I said, dude, this is me. I'm in 22 years of my life, Nick. I felt that I was a fast, but I was an ant. I was a poor ant, I was a rich ant, I was a slow ant. And I said, that is me, right? This is my moment. I should absolutely get going. So that was the first story. The second one is that when I actually looked at the qualities of an ant, the five things, the five qualities, and I completely, as a company, both me, my co-founder, we, aligned to that. The first one is it's the only species that carries a weight which is, I think, 3 times its body weight or 5 times its body weight. It's super strong, right, on a daily basis. So they do the impossible, right? AKA do the impossible. So that's first. Second is that they believe in teamwork, right? They can't do it themselves. They are always in a team, which is how we've also evolved. The third is they're organized, right? Always you see them being organized. The fourth one, really good one, I love this one, is that they're frugal, right? You give them a piece of meat, put it in front of them, they'll eat a little bit, and then they'll carry the whole damn thing and store it for a rainy day, right? So great quality for a startup, especially. And finally, they get the job done, right? And I looked at this, so that's perfect. I have to have the word ant in my company name to remind me of all these 5 qualities that they stand for. But I guess the favorite story that I have and the most intimate story that I have is that it's actually also turns out to be a combination of 3 letters from my wife, my daughters, and my son's first name. So Purple Ant comes from Purnima, Dimple, and Siddhant. There you go.
I love it. That's awesome. That's a fantastic story. I know that you had described it. I'm going to try to summarize that on the show notes. So anyone that wants a rehash of that, we'll try to get that on the show notes.
Actually, I'll tell you a quick statistic on that. Sorry to interject. I wrote 2 blogs, Nick, over the last few months. The first one was on the sort of the thought leadership, right? Here's the state of telematics, the why, what, and the how. I think in 2 days I got like 90 views or 100 views on social media. I wrote a blog called "Why Did We Name the Company Purple Ant?" I got 1,200 views in 2 days. I mean, people I think relate to the personal story of every, especially of startups, and I think for me it's out there, right? This is who I am, and that is an interesting statistic. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, people love stories. You have to tie it to it comes down to emotion, right? And that's for every product. You can, if you can tie your product to a feeling, you're so far beyond like just an ordinary product, because people want to feel things. So you have a fantastic story. I would like to share that on the show notes. And as my son begins waking up, I can hear him. This is perfect segue where as we get to the end of the podcast, going to the more personal side of this, I always ask all my guests a couple of questions because I'm lazy, so I want to piggyback off of your wisdom. What tools or techniques do you use on a day-to-day basis to stay productive and or organized?
Yeah, I got to tell you, in this field, I'm also a student like yourself. Not the teacher. I'm also looking for answers from other people. But what I found is there are 3 or 4 tools that I'll share with you which work for me. So on the personal side, in terms of note taking, I'm a Microsoft Surface tablet guy, so I use the OneNote, right? So OneNote is very helpful. You can simply tag. So if I've had this interesting meeting with a client, I can easily just tag the client's name on that date, and I know what notes to refer to. You've got Slack and Google Keep is another one that both me and my founder, we use extensively for collaboration between us. And I don't know if you heard of, so Slack is pretty well known. I think you probably use it as well. We use it at InSnerds all the time. But Google Keep is something very interesting. It's like a to-do list which you can actively collaborate on. But my personal favorite, I would say, is something called Google Momentum. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I haven't.
Google Momentum is something similar. You can kind of like your to-dos, but every day, and funny thing is my 12-year-old configured my laptop with this. Every day you get a quote. Okay, it's like a quote of the day that comes up. And I can tell you in my startup journey how much energized and how much motivated I've gotten reading these different quotes that come up during the day. So it's just so that's another something that I've not seen a lot of people use, but yeah, there you go.
Okay, I'll add those to the show notes. And final question is, are there any books that you have particularly found influential, and it could be your business or personal lives?
Yeah. I think there are two books, and I'll talk about the first one, which is on the business side. There is a book written called The Startup Checklist: 25 Steps to a Scalable High Growth Business, written by a gentleman by the name of David Rose. In my last few months, Nick, when I started my startup journey, I was reading everything and anything on what makes a startup successful. You sort of learn from, the feedback that others have given around what to do and what not to do. And I found David Rose is a pretty big guy in the Silicon Valley, and he wrote this book called The Checklist, and it's unbelievable. It's literally not just the what to do, it's also the how to do. Okay. And 25 things that you need to think about, taking all the way from how should you think about incorporation to, co-founders, to hiring, to technology platform, to the free tools available. I mean, it's just unbelievable. If I could go back in time, I would probably read that, first, and I might undo a couple of things that I did differently. So that is definitely the first book that I will recommend. If there's anybody out here who's thinking about making that jump, I would say you're gonna benefit a lot by reading this book and knowing what to do. I think the second book that I really is very close to my heart, that I try to follow, is a book that we in the Hindu religion are very proud of. It's called the Gita, right? The Gita. It's essentially a set of advice that Lord Krishna had given to a warrior on a battlefield. But it's not just an advice to a warrior. It's about sort of how should you live life. There's nothing religious about it, believe it or not. It's about what are your duties, and how it talks about focusing on the present, focusing on your actions, right? The result will come by itself. I mean, so many times, Nick, you and I know that, right? We worry about, something is going to happen. And I start to ask myself, what can you do to control that outcome now that you've done everything on your part? And answer is nothing. So then why worry, right? So I'm reminded back to this book in those moments to say, listen, just focus on your action, what you've got to do. The rest is going to happen, right? So if you put in the hard work, you put in the talent, if your timing is right, and maybe you're lucky, things will happen.
Oh, I love it. I will put those up on the show notes as well. Pankaj, thanks so much for taking time out of your Saturday to talk Purple Ant. And now I know that Chicago is a tropical destination.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Thank you, Nick. This was a pleasure. Yeah, this was a pleasure. Don't go take care of your son now.
Yes.
You don't want.
He was just humming. He just stopped. I was. There he goes.
I have a feeling this was your alarm event to make sure that we're at the end of our conversation.
Yeah, he wakes me up every morning humming, and then he calls for me and asks me to help him hum. So I think he's going to be a singer like his mother. Pankaj Parashar has been our guest this week from Purple Ant. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.